Bow Wow and Jermaine Dupri were hip-hop's perfect duo, or so we thought, because Bow Wow recently said, "I was never signed to So Def." That makes no sense until you see the contracts, the money, and the lie hiding in plain sight for years. This story changes everything. Let's get into it. To understand why Bow Wow is so bitter today, you have to understand that in his head, he isn't an Atlanta artist, he's a West Coast artist. Before the braids and the basketball jersey, a 5-year-old Shad Moss was performing under the name Kid Gangsta in Columbus, Ohio. And here's where the mythology begins. It's 1993. The Chronic Tool pulls up to town. We're talking Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg at the absolute peak of their powers. Through some connections, this little kid gets backstage and performs. Snoop Dogg sees him and is like, "This kid is the truth." It was Snoop Dogg, not Jermaine Dupri, who renamed him Lil Bow Wow. Snoop literally adopted this kid into the Death Row Records family. Think about that. A 6-year-old kid hanging around with Suge Knight and Tupac. Bow Wow actually had a skit on Doggy Style and appeared in the Gin and Juice video. So, fast forward to the 2020s, when Bow Wow gets on Twitter and says, "JD didn't make me." This is what he's talking about. He feels like his certification came from the streets of Long Beach, not the suburbs of Atlanta. He even tweeted, "I'm a protege of Dog. I'm Snoop's artist first." But here's the problem. Death Row was, well, it was Death Row. It wasn't exactly a place for a child star to flourish. The label was chaotic, dangerous, and was falling apart. So, Bow Wow was a free agent with a lot of potential, but nowhere to go. If you're enjoying this breakdown so far, let YouTube know by hitting that like and subscribe button. Now, let's get back to the video. Enter Jermaine Dupri. In 1998, JD was the man. He had already struck gold with Crisscross, so he knew exactly how to market kids to the masses. He saw the hole in the market. Girls aged 11 to 16 had nobody to scream for. JD took Bow Wow, cleaned up the Death Row image, removed the cursing, and applied that signature Atlanta's bass sound. The result was Beware of Dog in 2000. Double platinum, huge hits like Bounce With Me and Bow Wow, That's My Name. Now, visually, this was a So Def takeover. The logo was everywhere. JD was in the videos dancing. To the public, Bow Wow was So Def. But this is where the lie happens. And this is where we have to get into the business stuff that ruins friendships. So, was Bow Wow lying when he said he wasn't signed to So Def? Technically, no. He's telling the truth. See, So Def wasn't an independent label like No Limit or Cash Money. It was an imprint joint venture with Columbia Records, which is owned by Sony. When Bow Wow signed his deal, he signed to Columbia Records. Columbia owned the masters. Columbia cut the checks. Columbia held the rights. Jermaine Dupri was basically paid a furnishing fee to produce the album and lend his brand to the project. Bow Wow explained this in a tweet saying, "I was never signed to So Def. I was on Columbia Records." Now you might say, who cares? It's just paperwork. But it mattered. It mattered a lot in 2002. That year, Jermaine Dupri had a massive falling out with Columbia Records. He packed his bags and moved the So Def label over to Arista Records. He wanted to take his kids with him. He wanted to take Jagged Edge and Bow Wow. But Columbia said nope. Because the contracts were with Columbia, not So Def, JD had to leave. But Bow Wow and Jagged Edge were forced to stay behind. Imagine how awkward that is. Your dad in the music industry leaves the building, and you're stuck with the corporate executives who don't know how to produce your music. This was the first crack in the foundation. And the crazy thing is, Bow Wow actually told us this. We just weren't listening. In 2005, on the song Fresh as Emies, Bow Wow dropped the bar that explains the whole situation. He raps, "Record says Columbia, but I'm so man. I stay on the grind, bringing in that dough, man." He literally admitted it on a top charting single. Record said Columbia. He was telling us that on paper, he belonged to the corporation, even if his heart was with the squad. Now, let's talk about the money. Because if there is a beef in the music industry, 99% of the time, it's about publishing. Publishing is the money you make for writing songs, not just performing it. And for the first few albums, Jermaine Dupri hits. He wrote Bounce With Me, Like You, Let Me Hold You, so JD got the big checks. As Bow Wow got older, he started realizing he was missing out on millions. This blew up in 2006 with a song called I'm a Flirt, featuring R. Kelly. Bow Wow claims he helped write this song. He credits R. Kelly with sitting him down and teaching him the business, saying R. Kelly was real enough to give him his publishing split, unlike JD. Bow Wow says JD and the label tried to bury I'm a Flirt. They didn't want it to be a single. Why? Because JD didn't produce it and JD didn't write it. If that song blew up, JD didn't get paid. Instead, they tried to force a song called Out of My System, which JD produced, to be the hit. Bow Wow took this personally. He felt like his mentor was actively trying to sabotage him so he wouldn't get independent. He tweeted, "They didn't want me to shine. They knew once I got my first #1 without him, that's all the confidence I needed." And guess what? I'm a Flirt ended up being a massive smash hit, hitting #1 on the rap charts, largely without JD's help. Over the years, this resentment just festered. There is a legendary story from 2006 when Bow Wow and Omarion were making their collab album Face Off. JD was supposed to executive produce it. According to Omarion, on the very first day in the studio in Atlanta, Bow Wow looked at JD and fired him. He told him, "I'm just not really feeling what the you're doing." Fast forward to the Twitter era, and Bow Wow has gone scorched earth. He recently did a Q&A where he called all his old albums, the ones JD produced, mid. He said, "Don't care for any of my albums. Just because I did them don't mean I like them." He's trying to devaluate the work just to hurt JD's legacy. Then there was the 106 and Park beef. JD went on a podcast and claimed he created 106 and Park specifically for Bow Wow because MTV wouldn't play black teen rappers.
106 and Park was created by me. I created the show for Bow Wow.
Bow Wow wasn't having it. He tweeted, "Stop the cap," and gave credits to the BET executives instead. It got so bad that the brat, who is basically JD's sister, jumped on Instagram and tore into Bow Wow, listing all the things JD did for him and calling him ungrateful. So why is this relationship so toxic? It's a battle for control. JD wants credit for building the car. Bow Wow wants credit for driving it across the finish line. And there's one moment that sums this up perfectly. Over a couple years ago, Bow Wow did an interview with King Ice. He showed off a brand new diamond-encrusted So Def chain. Now, usually, the CEO gives you the chain, Jay-Z gives you the Rock chain, Birdman gives you the YMCMB chain. Bow Wow admitted he bought this chain himself. That is the saddest flex I've ever heard. He is repurchasing the symbol of a family that he claims he was never officially part of, just to hold on to the legacy. So where are they now? It looks like the saga is coming to a close exactly where it started. Bow Wow has announced that his final album will be released on Death Row Records. He's reuniting with Snoop Dogg to close out his career. He wants to finish where he started, bypassing the entire So Def era as if it was just a detour. Was Bow Wow signed to So Def? Legally? No. Culturally? Absolutely. But in the music industry, culture doesn't pay the bills. Contracts do. And that discrepancy is why 30 years later, Lil Bow Wow is still barking at the big dog. What do you guys think? Is Bow Wow ungrateful, or does he have a point about JD holding him back? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more in-depth hip-hop breakdowns. And hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. I'll catch you next time.